Well, it's good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to talk to you, man.
Let's start with the EP, recorded songs, beautiful new songs, and as
Yes.
I'm told, I'd love to get the story behind these because, as I guess the
Yep.
press quote goes, like these are not looked at as B-sides or bonus tracks or throwaways or whatever, right?
No, they're not. They were songs that we loved throughout so two of them, Rained On and Roadless, were both written for the last record, and we demoed or recorded them up to a certain standard, and they just didn't fit. It wasn't that they weren't good enough. There was like there was like a sonic tone to the record that those songs didn't really comply with. So I guess that's the main difference between these songs and a B-side. Like a B-side is probably kind of a 6 out of 10 song that you've written and might as well go somewhere. But that's not how we felt about these, and hence why we wanted to give them slightly more attention than just throwing them on the other side of a single.
And Julien Baker, of course, is a part of this story with one of the songs.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we've been huge fans of her since the last record came out, and we were lucky enough to play some shows with Julien. It was a case of we're all standing there in the audience, watching a support act completely silence a room full of people that came to watch our band, and that kind of hit us pretty hard. It was spellbinding. Her show is incredible, and just for someone such a small stature on stage but such a big voice, and we just love her music. So it was kind of, we'd written this song and it seemed kind of right for a duet, for another voice, and Julien was the first person that we asked, and she said yes. So it was a really easy thing to navigate.
Did you guys get to do it live together, or was this one of those over the mail?
It was over the mail, as is mostly the case these days. Julien she's become incredibly busy, which is great. But she did the vocal in Nashville. We recorded the music in some of it in Texas and some of it back in Scotland. So it's it's got an international recording structure.
Well, so on these songs on the EP, the two of them, I guess, that I centered on, because I was looking at the lyrics, and it's hard not to, especially if you know anything about, I keep up with you online, Twitter and everything else, and I look at Roadless and I look at Rained On, and knowing that you were in LA for a while and now you're not, that's what I'm sort of looking at here. It's like, is this about your time there and leaving?
They were certainly, Rained On was written right in the midst of LA time. I mean, the title itself alludes to me missing the seasons. I was definitely feeling out of sorts there a little bit. I wrote that song in a sort of songwriting retreat up in Big Bear in the mountains near Los Angeles, and yeah, they do refer to that feeling of being a little lost in a space. Roadless is fairly obviously about that, but then trying to reconcile with that, I was going through this whole thing where it's like, is it me? Is it the town? What's wrong here? And yeah, I just gave it my best shot, and it didn't work out, but there was some material to be gained from that, certainly, and these two definitely fit into that category.
I looked at Rained On, and I thought, as a fan trying to dig a bit deep or deeper here anyway,
Yeah.
it's possibly three different things, that it's quite a literal song if you want to take it as that, especially when you're talking about just the rain in LA and the Dust Bowl out there. Possibly a metaphorical song in the relationship stance, but I also saw the little bit of the political side to it. January 1st, the calendar flips and everything turns a bit darker here in our country, at least.
Yeah, it is about LA doesn't. It's kind of dirty because it doesn't rain enough. I was like, enjoyed this joke by this comedian called Emo Phillips, who said, like, it needs to rain in Scotland so we can clear up all the vomit on the streets. And there's some truth in that, unfortunately, but none of it is mine anymore. But yeah, no, I see January 1st as very much like a start again kind of day, for however long it may last. Usually it lasts, like, on a sort of more modern level, maybe we'll go vegan for a month, or maybe we'll cut alcohol. But then it also can provide you with some perspective on the last year to then, see how you go about your kind of personal life and your relationships differently as well. It's a kind of classic Frightened Rabbit song in that sense. It's about a relationship, and it's about a very specific place. So yeah, But do you see January 1st as like a dark time?
No, I was looking at it because I agree with every bit of what you said there. I was looking at January 1st, specifically this past January 1st, 2017, as a darker time because of the November election.
Yes, now that's relevant, but it was written before that shit went down. So, but I can see how that could be applicable. Yeah, for sure.
I did try, and I think I'm wrong because of what you said earlier, but I said, to think to myself, it's not impossible to draw a line between this EP and your earlier records, and I only put it in that context because you're celebrating the 10th anniversary of Midnight Organ Fight. So, well, yeah, you're right. They do bear relations with to a lot of that material. There's like the acoustic guitars back in there, and they're slightly less dense sonically than some of the stuff we've been putting out recently, and that's also why they didn't fit on the last album. But it was nice to sort of revisit that feeling. I guess in a way we're always trying to go back to that feeling where, and I think about it a lot when we were writing Midnight Organ Fight, or I was writing it really. I was kind of doing that on my own, just with my brother helping out on drums, and that idea that there's no expectation from an audience. You're writing very much for yourself. It's almost a private affair. It's all based in a bedroom. We weren't fancy enough really to be using studios much at that time. And for that, everything's exciting and free. And now, it's like, your band becomes a business. You have employees. There's all this other side to it. And all that's like kind of can strip away the innocence of making music. And so it's something that's constantly in my head, and there's like a very direct reminder of it next year that we did this record without really knowing what the fuck we were doing, and it somehow resonated like out of nowhere without us knowing, and then it snowballed, and we got to the point at the end of that album around sort of start of spring 2009 where our live agent was saying, you can come back as many times as you like because I know that there will be another 500 people in this town that discovered that record and really wanted to see it live. So it was just going on and on and on, and none of us knew what was happening really. So I think it's important to celebrate that because it's essentially the record that put us where we are today, which is a band that can just be a band that can do this for a living, and that's something I'm eternally grateful to that record for, even though we didn't really construct it that way. And that record still holds up. I mean, it's only been 10 years, which, in the grand scheme of anniversaries that we seem to always be celebrating these days, it's not that long.
We are now, yeah.
Yeah, but still, I mean, 10 years is nothing to sniff at there either. So. And
it's not, yeah. I'm gonna have to listen to it again, I guess, to learn the songs. I haven't heard it for I maybe haven't heard it in like 10 years, so we'll see how it holds up in my mind.
I do want to bring up though that you put the tickets on sale for this, and you've had to deal with the whole scalper thing, right?
It's been intense. Certainly more so than we've ever experienced in the past. Yeah.
Now, I know there are a lot of artists that are, trying to find the ways to get around that. Is that something that you guys have worked with? I mean, did this just blindside you the way it happened?
Right. This was a surprise to us. So, in the past, there's been a handful of shows, like smaller underplay shows that had sold out pretty quick, but they were so under the radar that the scalpers weren't on it. Mm-hmm. So there was none of this. This one was quite well publicized, probably about a week in advance. And that gave people time. It surprised everyone. Like the ticket websites weren't prepared for the demand. A couple of them crashed because it's like on paper it's like a little Scotch band that's just playing a record that's old as fuck, and they weren't expecting this. So nobody was expecting this. And then I'm on a train. And I'm like, tickets just went on sale. Let's see what's happening. Wonder how they're doing. And then it's just this. I go on Twitter, and there's this stream of complaints of people saying, "Holy shit, I didn't get my tickets." But then I've checked on these like reselling sites, and they're like 3 times the price. And it's not something that's ever happened to us before. So we're completely unprepared, and I felt awful about it, Yeah. So maybe it's not going to be a problem for us again. But it's really raised my eyebrow to the issue. I didn't, I know that bigger bands have been fighting it. There's a very kind of hands-on approach from bands like Biffy Clyro over here who have been finding ways. I know the Foo Fighters have started to do it, but it causes problems in itself when people don't bring ID to the shows and they need their ID to go with their ticket and then they get turned away, and that's unfortunate too. So it's a real problem, and one that only in the last 2 weeks I've become more acutely aware of. So yeah, it's something that I'll be keeping an eye on for sure in the future.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, it does say a lot about the success of your band, which, congratulations on
sure.
that. On the other hand, I mean, these sites and these scalpers, it's such bullshit. I mean, no fan is a fan of that, it's... Oh.
No, it's awful. We had a lot of people got in touch to say, hey, if I knew my $100 was going straight to you, then I'd pay it in a heartbeat. But it's going to, a faceless, I think it should be, it's criminal, really. It's taking advantage of people who are desperate to see something, to see some, just something that will make them happy. And a lot of the time, people will pay way, way over the odds for something just because they want to be there. And I find it abhorrent, and I would love to be more active. I was really, the thing is, I was speaking to my mum about it, and then she was like, but there's lots of happy people, and they sold out in a minute. Glasgow sold out in 90 seconds or something. And I couldn't help but focus on all the people that were complaining instead of focusing on that's very much one of my traits where I was like, there's this kind of success story which has this awful side product, and I was focusing on that. So I'm kind of getting over it now, but I feel bad for those who didn't manage to get tickets. I think we all underestimated this.
Well, it's that kind of attitude from you that's given us such classic songs over these past 12 years. So that's good. There is a weird positive in the darkest negative.
I'll stay sad, Kyle. For you, just for you.
No. The songs are good anyway. I don't want to end on this weird note about the ticket sales, but the story about your guitar is being lost in Africa. Did you get those back?
Yeah, I got my guitar back. Yeah, it was just one. My friend who I was traveling with, he lost all of his clothing as well as suitcase. So it ended up being found in Botswana. So we were in South Africa. Right. We were going from Johannesburg to Cape Town. They didn't turn up. And then we started being polite. All right, please, can we get some information? And then I just kind of went hardball and made it public on Twitter. And then we got immediate results. It was good. It's the power of social media again. Sometimes bad, sometimes good. And we got it back. They traced it to an airport in Botswana. So my guitar's been on a little trip of its own.
It makes total sense, because you were in South Africa. But there's something about "and my guitar ended up in Botswana" that just sounds like a punchline. For something.
It really does. No, it is. And the thing is, I don't want to ruin the joke, but it's actually not that far away. It's kind of just over the border, but in your mind, it's like your guitar's gone thousands of miles and is just laying somewhere in the middle of a savannah plain or something. So yeah, it was. It didn't go far, but he's with me now. I can see him.
Well, I'm glad you got it back, and maybe that'll find its own influence into your next record, and you won't even understand how it happened. It'll just be some African tones that's within the song.
Oh yeah, hell yeah, absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, it was really, really awesome talking to you as always.
Yeah.
After this, I mean, the EP and the celebrating the 10 years, I can't imagine you guys are already looking at the next record, but is that something that's on your mind?
It is. We've started demoing, so it's already underway, and we don't want to leave it too long. But yeah, we've got some shit on our plate at the moment, but we'll be doing as much as we can in the time that we have, in between touring and what have you.
Not wasting any time. That's incredible.
Yeah, well, I like my job. I don't really want days off.
Well put. All right, buddy. We'll take care out there, and we'll see you around.
Cheers. See you soon,
All
man.
right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.